What if the most dangerous person you will ever meet is the one who looks the most ordinary? Not the villain with the obvious scars, not the tyrant shouting from a podium, but the quiet colleague, the charming friend, the lover who seems endlessly agreeable. Carl Jung warned us, over and over, that the true danger lies not in those who openly show their darkness, but in those who bury it so deep that even they pretend it doesn't exist, and when that hidden darkness finally erupts, it can consume not only them, but everyone around them.
To understand Jung's warning, we need to look at one of his most powerful concepts, the shadow. The shadow is everything within us that we refuse to see. Our jealousy, our rage, our lust, our cruelty, every impulse we shove into the basement of our psyche because it feels too shameful, too unacceptable to show the world. Society tells us, be kind, be polite, be moral, be civilized. So we push down the opposite traits. But Jung said the shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. In simple terms, the shadow does not disappear just because we deny it. It grows in the dark, and when a person never faces it, never acknowledges it, never admits they are capable of evil, that is when they become most dangerous. Think of it this way. If a man admits he has violent impulses, he can learn to control them. He sees the danger in himself, and he sets boundaries. But if a man convinces himself he is purely good, incapable of harm, then his aggression will not vanish. It will slip out unconsciously, masked as virtue, righteousness, or justice. That is the paradox Jung reveals. The more someone insists they are harmless, the more likely they are to harm you. Because what we repress does not stay buried. It leaks, it twists, it manipulates, it disguises itself as morality, compassion, or even love. That is why Jung's psychology feels so unsettling. It forces us to ask, what is hiding inside the people I trust? History is full of examples. The dictator who begins as a savior of the people. The spiritual leader who preaches purity, while abusing followers in secret. The family member who seems endlessly giving, but manipulates with guilt and quiet cruelty. On the surface they wear masks of light. Underneath the shadow festers. Jung wrote that the shadow often appears in projections. Instead of admitting their own flaws, a person unconsciously projects them onto others. The liar accuses everyone else of dishonesty. The cruel person becomes obsessed with punishing immorality. The corrupt leader justifies brutality in the name of order. This projection blinds them, because they cannot admit their own capacity for evil. They see evil everywhere else, and they feel justified in attacking it. And so what looks like moral conviction can actually be shadow in disguise. Here lies the most dangerous sign in a person, according to Jung, the refusal to see their own shadow. Not anger itself, not envy itself, not even cruelty itself. Those are human traits we all carry. The real danger is when a person denies having them, hides them behind a mask of virtue, and convinces themselves they are incapable of harm. That denial makes them unpredictable. They don't consciously know why they lash out, why they manipulate, why they betray. To them, their actions always feel justified. They can wound you while still believing they are innocent. And the scariest part, they often believe their own lie. This is why Jung called the shadow a moral challenge. It takes brutal honesty to look in the mirror and admit, yes, I am capable of cruelty. Yes, I am capable of selfishness. Yes, I carry darkness too, but only when you admit it can you control it. Imagine two people. The first tells you, I have a temper. Sometimes I lose control. I work hard to manage it, but it's part of me. The second insists, I would never hurt anyone. I am always kind, always moral, always fair. Which one should you fear more? Jung would say the second, the one who refuses to admit their shadow, because when their darkness finally erupts, it will not come with awareness. It will come with denial, with self-righteousness, with the belief that hurting you is actually justified. This is why the people who seem too perfect, too selfless, too saintly, often reveal themselves to be the most manipulative. The false angel is far more dangerous than the honest sinner. So the most dangerous sign in a person is not visible at first glance. It hides behind charm, behind virtue, behind denial. It is the refusal to acknowledge the shadow. Jung's warning is clear. Stay alert, not to those who admit their flaws, but to those who claim to have none. Because the mask of purity is often the perfect camouflage for the darkest shadow of all. It's tempting to think this warning only applies to great villains of history, the tyrants, the cult leaders, the figures who scar humanity forever. But Jung insisted the shadow is everywhere. It is woven into ordinary life, quietly shaping the behavior of those around us. Your friend who always plays the victim, yet secretly manipulates you with guilt. Your boss who preaches teamwork, but takes credit for every success and blames others for every failure. The partner who insists they just want what's best for you, while slowly eroding your independence. These are not rare monsters. They are common people, and Jung's terrifying insight is this: their danger lies in their unawareness. They don't see their shadow, they believe their mask, and so they justify every act of control, every manipulation, every betrayal, as necessary, as right. This is the subtle horror of the shadow. It convinces the person that they are good, while they cause harm. Why does Jung say this blindness makes someone dangerous? Because when the shadow is suppressed for too long, it doesn't simply vanish. It builds pressure like steam trapped inside a sealed chamber. Every insult, every frustration, every unacknowledged urge adds more weight, and one day it bursts. But the explosion rarely looks like raw violence. It often comes in psychological sabotage. A spouse cheats impulsively, then claims it was destiny. A politician justifies corruption, as for the greater good. A friend betrays your trust, while convincing themselves you deserved it. When the shadow breaks free unconsciously, it often wears a mask of righteousness. The person isn't aware they are being cruel, they truly believe they are being just. That is what makes them so unpredictable, so difficult to defend against. One of Jung's most unsettling ideas is projection. Because we refuse to admit our own flaws, we see them in others. The angry man sees everyone else as hostile. The dishonest woman suspects everyone else of lying. The insecure leader accuses anyone who questions him of betrayal. Projection is not just blindness, it is weaponized blindness. It takes the flaws you refuse to see in yourself and paints them onto others, so you can punish them instead of confronting yourself. This is why some of the most righteous people in history committed the darkest atrocities. They projected their own shadow onto an enemy and destroyed it outwardly, never realizing they were destroying a mirror of themselves.
Jung wrote, "The world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, the world will tell you." In other words, if you don't face your shadow, it will be forced upon you in distorted, destructive ways. A man who refuses to admit he craves power will become obsessed with controlling others. A woman who refuses to acknowledge jealousy will ruin relationships under the guise of love. The refusal to face the shadow does not make someone harmless. It makes them ruled by unconscious forces they cannot see. They become a puppet of their own denial. And here lies Jung's terrifying observation. These people are everywhere, and often they are the very ones others admire most.
Why do we trust these people? Why do we admire those who deny their shadow? Because society runs on appearances. The man who always looks calm, polite, morally pure, he earns respect. The woman who appears endlessly nurturing, never angry, always giving, she earns admiration. But appearances deceive. The people who look the most balanced are often those who have simply buried their shadow the deepest. And when it finally breaks through, society is shocked. This is why scandals devastate communities. The beloved teacher revealed as abusive, the priest caught in hypocrisy, the political hero exposed as corrupt. We never saw it coming because the mask was so convincing. Jung would say we were fooled, not because the shadow wasn't there, but because we wanted to believe it wasn't. We prefer illusions of purity to the uncomfortable truth that every human being carries darkness. So what does this mean for you, the listener, trying to navigate a world full of masks? It means you must learn to spot the warning signs. Beware of people who claim moral superiority. Beware of those who insist they are incapable of harm. Beware of the too perfect, too kind, too selfless persona, because beneath that surface, there may be a shadow swelling with unacknowledged rage, envy, or cruelty. Jung doesn't tell us this to make us paranoid, but to make us realistic. If you want to survive in a world where people are ruled by unconscious shadows, you cannot take appearances at face value. You must look deeper. Carl Jung's warning is not about the obvious villain, but about the smiling mask that hides the shadow. The people who openly admit their flaws may sometimes hurt you, but at least you see them coming. The people who deny their flaws, who project them outward, who wear the mask of purity, those are the ones who can devastate you without even realizing what they're doing. And that, Jung would say, is the most dangerous sign of all. Up until now, we've spoken about the individual shadow, the hidden darkness inside one person. But Jung also warned of something even more terrifying, the collective shadow. When individuals deny their inner darkness, they often band together and project it outward onto a shared enemy. Suddenly, the personal shadow becomes collective hatred. Entire communities, nations, even civilizations have unleashed catastrophic violence because they refused to acknowledge their own flaws and instead hunted them in others. This is why Jung wrote after World War II with such urgency. He saw how Nazi Germany had become a living embodiment of the collective shadow, ordinary people convinced of their purity, projecting their darkness onto an entire race, and justifying destruction in the name of righteousness. The danger, Jung insisted, is not gone. The collective shadow is always waiting, always lurking beneath the surface of society. Whenever people gather into groups that claim to be pure, just, or righteous, the shadow is likely operating just out of sight. Here is the irony that Jung forces us to confront. The most dangerous people rarely appear dangerous. They cloak their motives in noble causes. The corrupt politician insists his betrayal is for the stability of the nation. The zealot claims their violence is for the glory of God. The manipulative friend insists their control is for your own good. This is not conscious deception, it is unconscious possession. They are possessed by their shadow, blind to their own darkness, convinced they are instruments of light. That is what makes them dangerous. Their actions are not slowed by guilt or self-doubt. They truly believe they are right, and a person who believes their harm is holy is far more destructive than one who admits to being cruel. Jung also pointed out something crucial. Why do people deny their shadow in the first place? Because facing it is terrifying. To admit your own capacity for evil is to take responsibility for it. It is far easier to pretend you are pure, to push the darkness onto others, to live in denial. Responsibility is heavy. It means admitting I am capable of hurting others. I am capable of betrayal. I am capable of cruelty. Few people want to carry that burden, so they repress it, deny it, and project it. But that refusal to take responsibility makes them dangerous, not only to themselves but to everyone around them. Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The person who refuses to see their shadow will blame fate, society, or enemies for every destructive impulse, never realizing they themselves are the source. If the most dangerous people are those who deny their shadow, how can we detect them? Jung did not leave us helpless. He pointed to subtle signs that reveal when someone is ruled by their shadow. Moral absolutism, they speak as if they are incapable of wrongdoing. Their worldview is black and white, with themselves always on the side of light. Excessive projections, they are obsessed with the flaws of others, constantly accusing, blaming, and moralizing. Charm without depth, they may seem endlessly agreeable, but their kindness feels rehearsed, mechanical, or strangely hollow. Inability to admit fault, no matter the evidence, they cannot acknowledge when they are wrong. Their mask cannot crack. Sudden, unexplained outbursts, when the shadow breaks through, it comes in explosive rage, cruelty, or betrayal that feels out of character, but in truth, it was always there. Jung's message is chilling. You cannot trust what people show on the surface. You must watch for the shadow. But here's the uncomfortable truth. It is easy to listen to this and think about other people. The boss, the friend, the lover, the leader who wears the mask. But Jung's warning is not only about them, it is also about you. Because every person without exception carries a shadow. And the most dangerous mistake you could make is to believe that Jung was talking about others, and not you. Ask yourself, what do I refuse to admit about myself? What flaws do I always see in others but never in me? Where do I wear a mask of kindness, generosity, or morality, while secretly feeding my own ego? The shadow is not a curse, it is a test. If you refuse to see it, it controls you. If you face it, you gain power over it. Jung believed true strength comes not from pretending to be pure, but from confronting your darkness and integrating it into your personality. Jung called this process individuation, becoming whole. To integrate the shadow means to admit your flaws, confront them, and learn to channel their energy consciously rather than letting them leak out unconsciously. The man who admits he is capable of violence can protect without abusing. The woman who admits she is capable of envy can admire without sabotaging. The leader who admits they crave power can rule responsibly without tyranny. The denial of the shadow makes people dangerous. The integration of the shadow makes people powerful. This is why Jung's psychology remains so relevant today. In a world obsessed with appearances, the greatest act of strength is honesty about your own darkness. So remember this, the most dangerous sign in a person is not their anger, not their jealousy, not even their cruelty. It is their refusal to admit those traits exist at all. Because when the shadow is denied, it grows unchecked. It slips into their actions disguised as virtue. It convinces them they are right, even as they destroy you. And if you want to stay alert, you must not only watch for this sign in others, you must confront it in yourself. Only then can you escape being ruled by the shadow. We've seen how the shadow infects individuals and how it festers in groups. But Jung's most terrifying warning was this: when the shadow is denied on a mass scale, entire civilizations can collapse. Think of history. Wars, genocides, witch hunts, inquisitions. They were not led by obvious villains twirling their mustaches. They were driven by ordinary people who believed they were serving righteousness. Priests burning heretics, soldiers slaughtering innocents, neighbors betraying neighbors, all convinced they were doing the right thing. This is the nightmare of the collective shadow. It hides behind morality. It does not scream, "I am evil." It whispers, "I am good, and therefore I must destroy." Jung saw this in the totalitarian movements of the 20th century, but his warning reaches into our time as well. Whenever society divides itself into saints and sinners, the pure and the corrupt, the enlightened and the damned, the shadow is at work. And if no one dares to confront it, destruction follows. But let's bring this back to your life. How do you protect yourself from people who live in denial of their shadow? First, understand this. Such people do not know they are dangerous. They genuinely believe they are good. That is why you cannot rely on their self-image to judge them. Instead, you must look at their patterns. Do they constantly blame others, but never admit fault? Do they moralize endlessly, pointing out the flaws of the world while ignoring their own? Do they appear too good to be true, too generous, too kind, too saintly? These are red flags. Jung would tell you, do not be fooled by the mask. If someone cannot acknowledge their own darkness, you must stay on guard.
There is a reason Jung's insights feel unsettling.
Even disturbing. We want to believe in goodness. We want to trust the masks people wear. To admit that danger often hides behind virtue is uncomfortable. It strips away our illusions. But illusions don't protect you. They leave you vulnerable. Jung's message is harsh, but it is also liberating. When you know the truth, you stop being fooled. You see through masks, you protect yourself from those who would unconsciously harm you. And more importantly, you protect yourself from your own shadow. Here is Jung's final and most important lesson. Before you look for the shadow in others, you must confront it in yourself. Ask yourself the hardest questions. What am I capable of? If pushed far enough, Where do I deceive myself into thinking I'm always good? What traits do I condemn in others, while secretly carrying them myself? The answers are not comfortable, but they are necessary, because the shadow you refuse to see will control you. The shadow you confront becomes a source of strength. Imagine anger. Denied, it leaks out as passive aggression, bitterness, or cruelty disguised as righteousness. But admitted, anger can become courage. It can give you the fire to stand up for yourself, to protect what matters. Imagine envy. Denied, it leaks out as passive aggression, bitterness, or cruelty disguised as righteousness. But admitted, anger can become courage. It can give you the fire to stand up for yourself, to protect what matters. Imagine envy. Denied, it poisons friendships and drives sabotage. But admitted, envy reveals what you truly desire, giving you clarity about your goals. This is why Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious.
The true path is not to reject the shadow, nor to indulge it, but to integrate it. Integration means you accept that you are both light and dark, kind and cruel, selfish and selfless. You are capable of both creation and destruction. When you admit this, you are no longer controlled by unconscious forces. You gain choice, you gain freedom, you gain power. The most dangerous person is the one who denies their shadow. The most powerful person is the one who integrates it.
So what is the most dangerous sign in a person? It is not anger, envy, or cruelty. It is the refusal to admit those traits exist. It is the mask of purity. It is the person who insists, I would never, while their unconscious drives them to do exactly that. Jung's warning is not meant to make you paranoid, it is meant to make you awake. Awake to the masks people wear. Awake to the forces that rule societies. Awake to the darkness in your own heart. Because once you see the shadow, you can no longer be deceived. And when you confront it within yourself, you stop being dangerous and start being powerful. Stay alert. Stay awake. Stay awake. The smiling face, the saintly mask, the voice that insists it is incapable of harm. These are the ones you must watch most carefully. And when you look in the mirror, do not lie to yourself. Admit what you carry. Accept it. Integrate it. Because only the one who dares to confront their shadow can truly walk in the light.